This week on Head to Head, the return of the Empire.
You're listening to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars begins now.
Hello, everybody. I'm Eric Vansel.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
And we're your hosts for this podcast. So I was watching, and I think you brought this up to me, probably last week sometime. But, I was going through YouTube as I usually do, trying to see the whole Star Wars stuff, like anything I can find.
Right.
And I know you had to have seen that whole George Lucas reacts to the trailer thing.
Oh, my God. That thing was so hilarious.
That was so funny, man. I mean, first of all, the guy that did the impersonation.
Man.
Spot on.
Yeah, amazing.
Like, I mean, you almost believed it was him.
Yeah, definitely.
But, I mean, some of the comments that he was making were just, like, killing me.
Man, I mean, the stuff that he was just talking about, like, oh, that's original.
Yeah, exactly. I thought of that about 20 years ago, but they didn't want to do or something like that. I mean, it was just like, and it just kept getting progressively like more scathing and
like he was just really it was like a really irritated George Lucas, man.
It was kind of like the whole grouchy George Lucas thing. I mean, it was, if you guys haven't seen that, you should, well, after this, maybe I'll actually leave a link to it in the comments or something. But I mean, it was just a really brilliant parody of what George Lucas might have said
if he saw the trailer.
If he saw the trailer for the final trailer for Rise of Skywalker. It's kind of like those reaction videos that you guys see all the time. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out.
Yes.
All right, but I think it's time for us to go to the Cantina.
Well, got my beverage here.
All right.
We're ready to roll.
Let's do it. What do we got first?
All right. So, any chance that you think that Luke will come back for a final battle in Rise of Skywalker?
I actually think that there might be a good chance that he will. Because it's tough to say because, I mean, Luke basically, or Mark Hamill, I'll get this right eventually. Mark Hamill was on set for something like 10 days. I think that was something like what he said. Now, that's not a terribly long time for somebody to be, shooting in the film world.
Right.
And usually that screams like I just got kind of a minor role and everything. I mean, on a related note, we found out last week, too, that Jamie Lee Curtis was only on the Halloween Kills set for around that long, too. Which, it doesn't necessarily mean that their role is diminished because, you could have like a really key scene or, a couple of key moments in a movie that affect the whole movie. I mean, I would actually liken that to the Yoda scene in The Last Jedi. He was only there for, like maybe 10 minutes or something of screen time. But I mean, it was a really compelling, talked about, impactful moment in the movie. And I honestly think that we might not actually see Luke that much. The focus isn't going to necessarily be on him. But I do think that that's going to be something that we're going to, it's going to be a really impactful moment. Now, whether or not it's a battle scene, if I had to do an over-under,
okay,
I'm going to say probably around 40% that he does a battle.
That he does a battle scene?
Yeah.
I'm going to go with 80%.
Oh, you actually really think he's going to do a battle scene?
Yeah, here's why.
It's almost too bad this wasn't Duel of the Fates, you guys.
But here's why. So, one, of course, we saw in The Last Jedi where we saw, Master Yoda come back in pretty much physical form and was actually able to touch, like, Luke and actually create things that happen in real time, such as the lightning bolt hitting the force tree. Now, it made me think, because there was some speculation that, Luke was going to come back and actually, I think it was said that he was actually going to appear to Kylo and try to right the wrong that basically, like, look, I never got a chance. Because, in The Last Jedi, he said, see you around, kid. So I think he's in the Rise of Skywalker. He's actually going to come back and actually appear to Kylo and actually try to, like, look, listen, I know what I did was wrong. I had a moment of lapse judgment.
Sorry, I tried to kill you there.
Yeah.
Almost reminds me of the whole Matt the radar technine where it's like, sorry, I killed your send him a card like, sorry, I killed your
family.
Yeah, your family.
But I think that, and it also it made me think about and think back to Empire. Mm-hmm. When Obi-Wan was sitting on the log with Luke and he was like, if you choose to face Vader, I can't interfere. So that makes me wonder, could Obi-Wan have actually gone out and actually physically gone out and helped?
There was in the original, so somebody made this YouTube video about the original Revenge of the Jedi script. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that whole like second act or whatever, I mean, there's a lot of differences in it. Mm-hmm. But in Lucas's original script, Yoda and Obi-Wan were going to come and help Luke face Vader and the Emperor.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm saying.
In their Force Ghost form or something.
Yeah, in their Force Ghost form. And so that was my whole rationale behind it, is because I think
that's why I say 40%, because, you know, I do see a scenario where Luke would definitely be using a lightsaber in battle again, especially when you think of the epic nature of this movie. I mean, when you see like all the stuff going on. On the other hand, though, it just seems to me, though, like his role is going to be more of an advisory type of a thing.
Oh, definitely.
And I don't think he's going to necessarily, that's why I say 40%, because I'm saying a little bit under half. Mm-hmm. You know, because I mean, normally I would just go, it was like a 50-50 shot. Mm-hmm. But I think it's really more like 60-40 that he's not going to, only because when you deal with the screen time, because remember, if he's only on set for 10 days, I mean, he's not training, he's not, you know, doing any of that stuff. So, I mean, to have him actually in any kind of a lightsaber battle, he would have to train for that, especially at his age. Mm-hmm. You know, it just seems like his role is going to be more advising the main characters.
Definitely. I think he's more of an advisory role, I should say. But I think I can see a point where it could come down to a situation where where the rebellion is at a point where, or the resistance, I should say, the resistance is at a point where they run into foes that are too powerful for them.
But even and Rey and Kylo I think that it would be
somewhere else.
Well, yeah, but I think it would be more of a force contest than an actual lightsaber.
Either that, or he could show up and arrive, you know, with Kylo and Rey to face Palpatine. But I mean, I just feel like it could be because one of the things is that fans were really upset that they never got a chance to see Luke go one more time. And I think JJ will find a creative way, and that would be the creative way to do it.
But I don't know. I think that would be more. I think we're just going to have to live with that last like half duel that we got in The Last Jedi, mm-hmm. which actually was really one of the cooler moments in the movie, I will say. Mm-hmm. You know, Luke basically taking on the fire, even though we found out he wasn't actually there.
Well, even the whole thing with Rey, that was really the only duel.
Yeah. Well, and I wouldn't even really call that a duel. I mean, Luke was just... Yeah, and he was just... I mean, it wasn't like he was trying. He was just basically kind of letting her vent. You know, it's almost like, you know, when a woman or whatever starts just like hitting on a guy and he's just trying to calm her down. And, then, you know, it was kind of a similar vibe. He wasn't really trying to hurt her or do anything. It was just...
Well, yeah. But I'm just saying, I think it shows that he still has... And if it's something like that where Luke probably won't even need to use his lightsaber much. I mean, he might ignite it for like a moment or something and do a couple of moves.
Kind of like a little Darth Maul Solo type thing. At the end of Solo, a Star Wars story, when he ignited his lightsaber for no apparent reason whatsoever other than effect.
No, I mean, I think he might use it like, so for example, like the thought I'm having is maybe the Knights of Ren show up. And okay, Luke needs to step in and help out. So he may like dispatch a couple with the lightsaber, and then the rest he might just force push or, you know,
I don't know. I mean,
avalanche or
because
something.
him
I
being
don't
like
know.
that he's a Force ghost now, I just don't think, there would almost be nothing, especially when you look at all the rumors of if Rey is going to face Palpatine, there's not a whole lot of other people that she would have to worry that much about. Same thing with Kylo.
Well, no, that's what I said. It would take place away from them. That's what I'm saying. Like, the Resistance would need the help, not Rey and Kylo.
Well, they have Leia, though.
But
There's
Leia's
been
not
rumors that she's like...
Yeah, but Leia's not a warrior, though. I mean, let's face it. And she's got other stuff to tend to. Like, she's still on the political side, so she's got other stuff. I mean, she's probably helped Rey out a little bit when she could, but, I don't really see Leia getting to the fray like that.
I don't know. I just don't know if there would actually be, like, another reason in story other than, I mean, let's face it, it's fan service. It would just
definitely
be about,
of course.
well, let's just, we didn't get to see it in Last Jedi. Let's just go ahead and do it. And I just don't think JJ's going to sacrifice. This movie is too important to sacrifice it to fan. Plus, look, we got battle droids in the background. We got, all kinds of other little, C-3PO's got red eyes. We got Rey igniting a red lightsaber. I mean, I think we're going to have enough in this movie to satisfy our whole fan service thing. Now, I will say, because like I said, there is a 40% chance in my mind that he could do it, or maybe like what you're saying, he might ignite the saber. Mm-hmm. He kind of did that in Last Jedi, actually. I'm not even talking about the end. I mean, when they did the whole flashback.
Oh yeah.
When he was about to mow down Kylo, basically. Yeah. Or maybe there'll be more flashback scenes.
Maybe.
We'll have to see.
Yep.
Let us know what you guys think. Will he ignite the green?
One more time.
All right, what do we got next?
All right, so we know that, or we're really speculating. I won't say no, but we really are speculating that the planet that Rey is on is Endor.
Yep.
Do you think we'll see the Ewoks return?
Oh.
That means Wicked and company.
Well, I would say that if they're on the forest moon, then there's a good chance that they'll make a cameo.
I could see Leia trying to hey, you go to Endor, look for these guys and tell them tell them I sent you.
Argument, well, there is the argument that could be made that because the Resistance was in such dire straits, that if they're going on the forest moon, okay, if where the Death Star ends up being this rumored ocean moon of Endor, you could see a situation where maybe they're going and they're trying to regroup and, let Rey train and do all that and kind of, basically pretty much just shore up their defenses and do all their plans or whatever on the forest moon and then jump over to the ocean moon and launch some sort of an offensive. So that's possible. And if they do that, then yeah, it would make sense since the Ewoks helped them in their struggle against the Empire in a very dumb, horrible way. It totally should have been Wookiees, like originally planned. Yeah. Because that made more sense.
I agree.
They're a warrior. I mean, you could see Wookiees defeat the Empire.
Wookiees are like a bunch of Klingons.
Yeah, and it would be, Trek, and it would be. The thing is it would still have that same allegorical reference that Lucas was trying to make.
Right.
With the whole primitive thing versus a high-tech thing. I mean, it would have done the same thing, but been a lot more believable.
Right.
But I digress. Because the Ewoks did help them out, it would actually make a lot of sense for them to, if they're going to be on that moon anyway, to go ahead and contact them and try to get supplies. And
it would be cool to actually see them reunite with Leia again, because it's now that she's older, she's like, oh, yeah, remember me? And they're like, oh, yeah.
Exactly. They make her another dress or whatever.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah, it would be kind of cool. I mean, I wouldn't. It would be heartwarming.
Yeah.
To see a reunion with the Ewoks.
Right.
As long as they're not in the movie that much.
No, I don't think that would be. I think it's just more I think that's just once again JJ's nod. Okay, oh, that was cool.
Yeah.
Wicked's now the chief or something like that, or and he's kind of all right, give her what she needs. type
Yeah,
thing.
if it was kind of like a stopover sort of thing, or something that, or maybe they played a minor role. There's other stuff going on, but it would almost be like when in Attack of the Clones, when Obi-Wan landed on was it Utapau? Where he faced General Grievous.
Yeah, Utapau.
Yeah. And basically, one of the natives there, he was like, asking questions. He was trying to get supplies, but he was trying to like make it seem like that's not what they were doing or whatever. I mean, if you had a scene like that with the Ewoks, where it was just kind of like this small 5-minute of screen time interaction, I'd be okay with it. But if it was anything else, and then I agree. I don't think that JJ's going in that direction at all. But, we'll have to see.
So, Brie Larson has actually been eyed to play Ahsoka Tano in Kevin Feige's movie. That's the rumor.
That is the rumor. Well, here she is
as Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm. And I really liked her as Captain Marvel.
Yeah, she was cool.
I mean, first of all, I'm a big Brie Larson fan anyway. I mean, I was introduced to her, of course, with Community. Mm-hmm. And, I loved actually the entire cast of Community. That's why I was so excited when Donald Glover was approached to play Lando Calrissian in Solo. Mm-hmm. Because I saw his work on Community, knew he was a brilliant actor that could pull it off, like all of them. If you actually watch Community, you see that it's a show where it requires them to do so much that each of the actors have to have an incredible range. Because, they did this whole, Christmas musical thing, which was just hilarious. They did actually a couple of musicals. Then they did this whole, big paintball thing. I mean, the comedy in that is so difficult, and there's a lot of, physically demanding stuff. So it totally makes sense that all these people are reaching out to the former actors of that show, simply because their range is incredible. And then, of course, after seeing her performance as Captain Marvel, which I thought was actually really good, and a lot of people agreed because it made a lot of money and people bought a lot of tickets.
Yeah.
I could see her as Ahsoka.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, it's kind of sad that...
Grown up Ahsoka, though, of course.
Yeah, of course. But it would have been nice to see Ashley Eckstein actually do the role.
Yeah, perfect.
Because she is Ahsoka in everybody's mind. But... And I don't know. I honestly think that Ashley could pull it off in a live-action setting.
Yeah.
But I will say that if Brie Larson is announced as Ahsoka Tano, I'd be fine with it.
Yeah, I would too. That would be a cool move. Definitely.
Because and I think you're going to see more of that too, because Lucasfilm, Marvel, and they're all owned by Disney. I think you're going to see a lot of
cross-pollination, so to speak.
Exactly. That's a good way of looking at it. And then we all know that, obviously Kevin Feige's doing that movie. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting that obviously Ahsoka may be in it. Now you really wonder,
where are they going?
Yeah, where are they going with it? What time period is it going to be?
Yeah.
What's the story? Because, and it really is a good story for them to tell because, as we know, there was a time period where she left the Jedi Order. So there was a period in between that and when we see her pop up again on Rebels.
Yeah, I mean, that would be cool if we actually saw some, Rebel stuff, that era of time. Just told more stories within that time period.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I don't know if you had a chance to do it yet or not. I mean, I started watching season 2 of Resistance.
Okay.
And, again, I really do think that show is underrated. I mean, yes, there's some kind of kid-like silliness to it or whatever, because it is, geared more toward kids, but at the same time, I mean, they do deal with a lot of really good themes, and I think that the stories in that show are really good. They kind of hook me a little bit, and because of that, now that, of course, is beyond Rebels. It's taking place actually, now it's actually crossed over from Force Awakens. So they're season 2 is taking place kind of in between Force Awakens. Well, I mean, they do kind of happen like right after each other, but they're kind of in that Force Awakens, Last Jedi time period.
Mm-hmm.
So that pretty much is well covered, with Resistance. But the Rebels time period, yeah, that's still kind of fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because it's a little bit closer to 4. Even though, I don't know, I have mixed feelings about that too, because there's been so many things that have been, done that's been closer to episode 4. I'd actually like to see some things done closer to episode 3. Mm-hmm. Kind of like a post-Revenge of the Sith kind of thing.
Yeah, like right after that.
Yeah, which is actually where I think the Obi-Wan series is going to go.
Yeah. Well, that'd be a good space for Ahsoka too, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, now she leaves the Jedi Order, and that was probably happening somewhere between, probably closer to 3 than 2. I mean, I know the whole Clone Wars era obviously is in between 2 and 3. Yeah, a little bit, maybe even. I was going to say, like, it just depends on how early or late they want to go. So that's the question, is like, okay, if she's approached to play Ahsoka, then which Ahsoka are we getting?
Right.
And what time period? Well, what about you guys? Do you guys think that Brie Larson's a good choice to play Ahsoka? Do you think that they should have, approached Ashley Eckstein to do it? Let us know what you guys think in the comments section.
All right.
All right.
Well, time to wrap up the cantina.
Time to finish up our drinks.
Let's wait for the road.
Yes. Go ahead and do it. We love the Cantina segment for obvious reasons, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, what do we got next?
Next, we have Duel of the Fates. All right. So this week, the question is Rey a Jedi in Rise of Skywalker or no?
I would think that. I know, it's almost like a question that stumps you.
Yeah.
I would say yes.
Okay.
For a couple of reasons. Number one, the things that determine what a Jedi is and isn't are a little bit undefined.
Skewed, if you will.
Yeah. Because here's the thing. At the end of The Last Jedi, she's lifting up a bunch of rocks. You hear this voiceover narration, and he's talking about how the Jedi are going to continue. He is not the last Jedi. It's implying that she's basically a Jedi at this point. The other thing is that the whole thing when you would go through the whole Jedi trials and all this stuff, usually it was this whole series of endurance tests and, different things. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the Clone Wars actually showed us in a whole story arc exactly what those trials included.
Right. Because there's psychological stuff, there's physical. And
then they had to go and mine for kyber crystals and, face a bunch of stuff with that. So, there's just a lot of things that they've had to do. Okay. Oh, and of course, if you kill a Sith Lord, that's kind of an instant, kind of testing out sort of thing.
Right.
Okay, well, then you flash forward to Luke's period of time. The Jedi Order is no more, so you can't really do these formal tests or anything like that. So how do you know what a Jedi is during the original trilogy era? Well, the answer to that is you have to face, the things that your fears and things like that. But in Luke's particular case, he had to face Vader. He had to face his own father. And it's kind of like, are you willing to do what's necessary? Which, of course, in their mind was to kill him. Or what? Now, of course, Luke basically turned that around. He tried to turn him back. And, we all know how that went. So that's what determined what a Jedi was in the original trilogy. So then the question becomes, what determines a Jedi in the sequel trilogy? Especially in an era when, it's assumed there really are no more Jedis. I mean, you still have Luke, but even Luke abandoned the whole Jedi Order or Jedi way. Actually, he cut himself off from the Force.
Right.
So then Rey goes to train with him, and it kind of like brings him back. And I mean, that's why I would think that bringing Luke back, in a way, was the sequel trilogy's equivalent to redeeming Vader. Because here was Luke, this great Jedi hero of the rebellion, who essentially lost his way. He didn't turn to the dark side, he turned to the no side, you know? And Rey went and brought him back. And in the process, she trained to be a Jedi, and, she kind of had it down. I mean, look, she was doing a lot of things. That's another thing that's so weird about her, is that she was doing a lot of things before she even really trained. She was more powerful than a lot of Padawans were. Now, she may have not have totally known what she was doing, but, I mean, it wasn't bad.
I think I will say that she's not a Jedi. Simply because I think, now I believe by the end of the movie she will become, well, and JJ said at the end of this there will be no Jedi and Sith anyway. So
She'll be like a Jedi for 5 minutes and then...
Well, yeah, I think she...
and then it's done?
I put it to you this way. I think she will be Jedi qualified by the end of Rise of Skywalker. I'll put it that way. But I don't think that she'll be a Jedi simply because, granted, she has the Jedi text and whatnot, so she can kind of like follow the dogma so much, or the ideals of the Jedi. But I think that, she hasn't, those trials is pretty much what's going to make you a Jedi. So I think in this case, her only way to really do it, because if she kills Kylo, that won't make her a Jedi because he's not a Sith, at least at this point.
What if she kills Palpatine?
But if she kills Palpatine, then yes, that would make her a Jedi. That's why I said it would make her a Jedi.
But couldn't it just make her a really powerful Force user, though? I mean, see, that's the thing. It's like, in order to be a Jedi... See, Luke essentially named her a Jedi. It's almost like being knighted.
Well, because, and it's funny because in the trailer, Luke made mention of a Jedi has to face their... basically almost like facing their fears and stuff like that. Yeah, that's
basically what he said.
And so that's why I said she's not one yet.
Well... because
she hasn't truly faced her fears yet, and she hasn't... That's what I'm saying. I think with her, it's more so the trials that's going to lead her up to Palpatine, and I think that's going to be her ultimate test.
Well, and here's another thing that basically supports your theory as well, is the fact that one of the biggest questions that Rey has had is her origins.
Exactly.
And she hasn't
let that go yet.
Yeah, she keeps looking in the past and looking behind, and there's no matter what we find out. Now, of course, if we find out she is in fact Palpatine's granddaughter, well, then she has to face that. Oh man, great,
that reality. It's like Luke had to face that Vader is his dad. He didn't want to face it at first.
That's true. That is true. And, I mean, it's also a good cautionary tale of be careful what you wish for. Sometimes you're better off not knowing. And so, it's almost like when these adopted kids go and meet their real parents or whatever and find out they're terrible. And
yeah, it's like you had this idealistic thought of what they could be like, and when they don't live up to that, then it's just like a huge letdown.
Well, here's a good example of that. Did you see Last Blood?
The
new Rambo movie.
No, I didn't. I wanted to, though.
But there's a scene in there where Rambo's niece or whatever goes to find her real dad or something. Just she, for some reason, has that need. I mean, it has nothing to do with Rambo and, her mom or whatever. It's just, the dad abandoned him. She knows where he is. She's in Mexico, so it's like, I got to see him. Well, she goes to meet him, and, he's terrible. He tells her to her face, I never really wanted you, or whatever. Spoiler alert. So, and then, of course, she's, like, really hurt and everything. And then that's when she ends up being in the position where the rest of the movie basically happens. But the point is, it's like now she's like devastated. She was almost better off just
living life.
Yeah, living life, not even knowing anything. And that's almost the situation that Rey could be in if she finds out. Now, who knows? Maybe if she finds out, if this is in fact the truth, if Palpatine really is her grandfather, maybe that'll help bring some closure or whatever. It really depends. But that is a good point, that's the one thing that she hasn't truly conquered yet. And maybe that's the one thing. It's almost like, was it Return of the Jedi? Why am I so, like, forgetful with these things? Where, then it was Return of the Jedi, because, he came back for his training and Yoda was like, no more training do you require? And then he's all like, well, then I am a Jedi. And he's like, no.
Exactly. Like,
one more thing. Kind of that whole Columbo thing.
Yep.
There's just one more thing you got to do.
Yep, you got to.
Then you'll be a Jedi.
Exactly.
And maybe that's where Rey is.
That's what I said.
In the Rise of Skywalker. It's like, okay, you're
almost there. You're
almost there. You just got one more thing you got to do, and then you'll be good. So, okay, I can hang with that. All right. Well, what about you guys? Do you guys think that Rey's a Jedi now, or do you agree with us? This is actually started out to be kind of a little bit of a duel, but you brought me around on this one.
I know I raised you, or I don't know I don't know what I did. I did something. I don't.
You turned my viewpoint around.
Yes.
That's what you ended up doing. Yeah, exactly. Sleight of hand. All right, what do we got next?
All right, next we have From a Certain Point of View. All right, this is our featured topic. This is our mainstay of the week. And the topic is Return of the Empire. All right, so, after seeing the trailer, we see a lot of images, especially like this one right here, where we see a lot of Imperial Star Destroyers. And we even, in the trailer, we saw one arising from, the ice, that's been laid dormant. And, I'm wondering, is Palpatine is he really trying to bring back the Empire? Like, is he really trying to resurge and bring that? Or does he have a whole completely different plan?
And this is a good. That's why at first when you sent this outline to me, and then I saw what it was. At first I was kind of like, well, I don't know about this topic. I mean, it's kind of, first of all, isn't it obvious? Like a fleet of like hundreds. I mean, there's a few here, but
yeah, it looks like it
kind of goes on for a while, right? But then I started thinking about it, because one of the big things that everybody pointed out, the differences, even though these are definitely Imperial class Star Destroyers, of total Empire stuff.
Yep.
The one thing that was different was, they had like some red stripe on them, and then instead of stormtroopers, you got Sith troopers now. So it's like, is this really the Empire? Or is it like a Sith army, but they're using Imperial stuff because that's what Palpatine
had,
basically had, or maybe that's the design he liked. Who knows? Because who built all this stuff, or is this stuff that was left over from the Empire that he just sort of?
Yeah, because there were always like these factories that he had, like building stuff. I mean, like you said, he in the previous podcast that he was really into a lot of tech stuff. I mean, that's why the whole Death Star came to be. Even both of them, because he was always kind of thinking like, okay, I need to have a firm hold in what's going to give me that advantage. But, you also have the First Order. So it's kind of like, well, why don't you just take over the First Order? And then there you go. They already got ships. They got dreadnoughts. They got all this other stuff.
Things you know what? That's been bugging me ever since we saw the first teaser trailer. Is I thought, because there were rumors that Palpatine was going to return. So I thought, okay, well, it's obvious he's going to come in now that Snoke is gone and be like, basically, now I'm the guy. And Kylo, you have a choice. You can either serve me or die, essentially, right? But then it's kind of like, no, he's got this whole like Empire like army out there. And then, you know, of course, we talked about this when some of these pictures were coming out. We're kind of like, well, you know, it almost looks like he's going to take on the First Order.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, we're going to wipe these guys out, and then I'm going to be the guy again. But it's like, there's no, like, you would think that the First Order would be the natural, because they obviously are what the Empire became.
Right.
They have their origins.
They modeled after the Empire.
Absolutely. Well, and not just that, they actually had a lot of officers.
Yeah, and that's what makes me wonder about, like, was it General Pride and Hux?
Mm-hmm.
Because now, you know, you got those guys. So you got to wonder if Pride is kind of like it's Palpatine's guy.
That's what I was wondering too.
You know what I'm saying?
Is Pride actually Palpatine's guy, and he's not in the First Order?
Exactly, and he's trying to basically like let Hux know, either, you know, you guys need to side with us and kind of merge the two.
Well, and then there's a whole rumors going around too that, you know, Hux is actually like a mole. He's kind of like the new Fulcrum or whatever, and he's like, you know, obviously probably to undermine Kylo maybe, but he's kind of like a mole for the Resistance.
Now, the other thing, you know, in thinking about this whole Empire thing, is that there's a rumor that the reason why Palpatine wants Kylo and Rey is because he needs their power. He's planning like to siphon basically the power from those two.
Yeah, I heard about that too.
And he's really trying to just basically allow himself to just become. That's why I've been asking.
Kind of like a Voldemort type of thing.
Yeah, and that's why I've been asking, like, okay, is he as powerful? Because it's like, why would he need to do that? You know, and that's what's making me question his
well, maybe
power
it's
ability.
Because, well, I wonder if it's I wonder if he still has enough force power, but maybe just it's like his body physically is
like he's weak. And
yeah, so he needs that to. You know how, like, when Yoda fights, he's got to, like, summon the Force to him, and then he can jump around like a little green
pinball
popcorn or something, and then, you know, and then he goes back to being physically.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a similar thing.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's a good point, though, because it's kind of like, okay, what is the deal with this? I mean, he's not taking over the First Order. It's kind of like the Empire. And again, this goes back to my criticism of the final trailer. Like what I was talking about last week was that we don't know. We really don't know the story. I mean, it would have been nice if we had had some dialogue between a lot of the main parties involved that outlined a basic narrative.
Now, do you think that's actually because, you know, JJ is trying to play everything kind of close to the vest with this movie? So is it that he just really just wants you just to experience it all without even kind of having a clue?
Well, yeah.
Because he figured you're going to go see it anyway. So it's kind of like...
Well, that's it. I mean, the fact that this thing has broken all these records, it's kind of like, okay, well, I guess it's not failing marketing too much. But at the same time, it's like, how much more could it be, though?
Well, I think that's
like, how much money are they leaving on the table if you want to go from a marketing perspective?
But I think that's the thing, is the curiosity, because people are always going to go what's curious, and it's like if you
We're curious because this is a hardcore fan kind of a thing, but to the casual fan.
Well, I mean, they're gonna come just because if they're the casual fan, you're not going to just. Oh, I guess I'll just check out this Rise of Skywalker movie.
There's a lot of people, believe it or not, that really don't even know.
But my thing is, why would you go see that movie if you haven't seen Force Awakens and Last Jedi? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you know, there's more movies that are attached to this. Even if you just talk about the sequel.
Casual fans generally are like the guys, like, okay, if you want to relate this to like a music thing, there's people that might like a certain artist. Mm-hmm. Okay. The hardcore fans have to buy like everything from there. It's almost like a collection kind of thing. Like you can't, the album might be terrible, but you have to have it because you're a completist. You have to listen to everything. You have to own everything. Mm-hmm. The casual fans kind of like, you know what? I don't really, they hear about something coming out, or maybe they don't know it's coming out. You know, it's kind of like it shows up on the store and they're like, oh, okay, maybe they'll buy it. Maybe they won't. There's a little bit more marketing push behind it, they might decide not to skip it. There are people in the Star Wars realm, the casual fans, that sometimes just skip movies. That's what happened with Solo.
Well, I mean, that I can understand because Solo is a one-off. But, I mean, we're talking about a trilogy. It's almost like I'm not going to go, like, randomly just go see like a Harry Potter movie, like the latest Harry Potter movie, because I know there's like, okay, now I can understand if they, especially if they broke it up. So, you say, all right, you got Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, you got with the Twin Towers or something like that. I don't know. The Goblet of Fire. You got all these.
Yeah, Order of the Phoenix.
You got all these.
Half-Blood Prince.
Right. So you got all these, the Chamber of Secrets. That's the other one.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay.
Yeah, you're getting Lord of the Rings in there.
See, but so I'm not a Harry Potter fan like that. Like, I mean, I've seen a couple of the movies, but I knew that I couldn't start in the middle of the thing and just figure this thing out. Like, I'm not just going to say, I'm bored today.
Kind of like episode 4 of New Hope. Just saying.
But that was the start of the trilogy, though. This is the start of the story, but at that time, no one really knew that.
I know.
I'm just saying. But I'm like, you got like.
No, and I know.
The Sorcerer's Stone.
I know exactly
Chamber
what you're
of Secrets,
saying.
And then there's whatever came after that.
Right.
It's like
you're not going to start with number 9.
Yeah, exactly. Like, who does that?
But here's the thing. It's not that they're starting with number 9. Like, there are people that did not like 8, as you know.
Right.
Now, their whole decision to see 9, if they're not hardcore, there's some people like us that, look, we have to see it. And even if we knew it was terrible, we would still be there like 1 in the morning going to see the movie. Right. There's a lot of people, though, that might have seen 1 through 8 and kind of like, you know what? I don't know. Maybe I won't go see 9. Mm-hmm. But if they see a compelling trailer for it, it might push them over the edge. And all I'm saying is these trailers aren't enough to rope in that kind of fan. They're not enough that would make a casual fan necessarily want to see the movie.
Right. I mean, they're probably going to wait. It's no different than like how I felt like about the Joker. Like, now granted, like everybody, I was hesitant about seeing it.
Yeah, I was too.
But then it's like, okay, once I start hearing all the like critics reviews of saying like, no, like, and I'm not even talking about like, your Siskel and Ebert, but I'm even talking about like local people, like you're watching Fox 2 and like Lee Thomas is talking about like, man, this movie is like amazing. And I'm like, okay, like,
and that was
these are tangible people.
And that was the exact same thing that happened to me. It was kind of like, I was going to be like, I don't know, maybe I'll skip this one or whatever.
Well, but I was going to wait for a while. I wasn't going to.
Or maybe like it comes on Netflix or Prime or something like that. Or yeah, maybe it's been out for a while. The hype's died down, so maybe I'll just go see this. Mm-hmm. Total casual thing. Perfect example.
Right.
Then all the reviews come out. You're like, whoa, this kind of sounds like, they're talking like Oscar buzz and all that. And I'm like, really? For the Joker? Okay, I'll go see it.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's what I'm thinking. Like those casual fans are probably going to see it off of that. So they're probably going to wait for all us, the hardcores, because you got to think about it. It's like if the hardcores love it, then 9 times out of 10, they'll like it.
Yeah, well,
because we're invested. You got to think about it. It's like,
well, but then there's also things that hardcore fans like that.
I mean, but 9 times out of 10, though, it's like if it's based upon something that, like, okay, for example, the Marvel series is like, all right, the Avengers series, for example. Like, okay, granted, all the Avengers movies were pretty good, but those people who are really into the comics, who really love what they did with the Avengers, like, man, they hit the spot on. If all the hardcore Avenger guys are like, yo, this is a really great movie. If I'm a casual fan of it, it means I like it. So it's like, okay, if the hardcore guys are loving it, well, that's just only more incentive for me to want to go see it because but if I'm a casual fan of Star Wars and everybody's like, oh, the Jedi suck, it was mixed reviews, now I'm hesitant to go see this movie.
Well, maybe in this, but again, for instance, a lot of times when they turn books into movies, Jack Reacher is a perfect example. The hardcore fans hate it. All the casual fans love it. And the reason why is because there are things, same thing with a lot of the comic book movies. There's a lot of comic book movies, Marvel movies in particular, that a lot of the hardcore fans hate that the general public loves. Why? Because, again, now you're dealing with source material, so this is a little bit different. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of like if they don't stick with the source material, the hardcore fans are going to hate that. The casual fan doesn't have those kind of expectations. They're just going to see the movie. They might like the way that it was done. The Meg's a good example of that, too.
Yeah, but I think if you're saying you're a casual fan, that means kind of like you already kind of have prior.
Well, okay, let me change
as
that.
Opposed to like
casual moviegoer.
Okay, well that's different.
That would be a little bit. That's really
different.
More what I'm talking about.
Gotcha.
I guess I shouldn't have really said casual fan. The casual fans could be.
Because it's kind of
so the casual fans would then be almost kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah, because like, okay, for example, like my friend Camille, like I've been introducing her to Star Wars. She's been wanting to like learn about it. She's like, okay, you guys got this whole podcast, you know, she's into, you know, Harry Potter and all that type of stuff. So I'm like, well, Star Wars is kind of like Harry Potter in its own kind of way. So she's a casual fan. So she's not like hardcore like we are, but she's been enjoying the movies thus far, and she's just enjoying learning about it, and it's cool for her.
Yeah, there are a lot of people like that where they like the movie, but they don't live, eat, and breathe it. They don't know all the characters.
Right. Like you say IG-88, she probably think that's some sort of printer cartridge or something.
Yeah, right.
You know, it's like,
yeah.
You know,
they go to the movies, they enjoy the movies, but that's the limit of it. They're not trying to learn the whole folklore of the whole thing or any of that stuff. And that's the casual fan. And then I would agree, if the hardcores like it, the casual fans will probably like it. Now, of course, there might be things about it they don't like, but as a general rule, I would go along with what you're saying. Totally.
Now, casual moviegoer, now you're absolutely correct on that.
That's basically what I was really, and I should have specified that, but that's basically really what I'm talking about is that, and then there's nothing, you know, in the trailer that would really indicate that. Now, here's my next question. And this is serious. I know you all are going to think I'm joking.
Uh-oh. What?
How did we get on this from, I don't even remember, like we were talking about whether or not the Empire was coming back, man, and I seriously lost like, my train of thought, like trying to figure out like where
do we go wrong?
Yeah.
Well, this is kind of the conversation we always have in the studio.
I'm just trying to bring it back to the Empire. I don't know. I have no idea how now we're talking about, this would have been good for our trailer discussion last week, actually.
I mean, true, but I mean...
Organic conversations, everybody.
Yeah.
That's why you love us. That's why you tune in.
Exactly. And that's why we started the show, actually.
That's why we started the show. This is what it's really like.
But, I mean, I think it kind of just divulged from like the whole plan of it all. And it's just kind of like, where are they
Disney
going with it?
Has dropped the ball so many times on how they've handled the Star Wars franchise because, and now I'm going a little bit into speculation, because of the fact that they're trying to treat Star Wars like their other properties. You know, Star Wars does not work like Marvel. I mean, there's similarities in, I guess, the popularity of the franchises, but Star Wars came from a different. It's a different thing, and Disney is constantly trying to handle Star Wars in the same way that they would handle any of these other big franchises, and that's why I think that it's suffering.
Yeah, the only thing I would say that they should address, and I think that's with anything that's a series, is that what Marvel has shown us is that you have to plan it through. So it's like that's the only thing that I would say is that anytime you're dealing with a series, you have to plan like, okay, what's the, no pun intended, end game? So it's kind of like, all right, if this is how we're going to end. So from the time, like we keep saying, like to death, like when they started 7, when they realized they were going to make another trilogy, they should have figured out how is 9 going to end, and then let's work our way back. And it's like, what do we need to do to tell that story?
Well, and then
so it's cohesive,
right? But how much of it then is? Because remember, Marvel and Lucasfilm are actually independent companies under the Disney umbrella. So I wonder how much of it was Marvel handling it right and Lucasfilm doing it wrong versus Disney.
I believe Marvel was doing it right. It's no different than because Marvel was already doing it before.
Exactly.
Because like Iron Man came out in 2008. The first Iron Man. So that was only a few years after the end of Revenge of the Sith.
Well, now here's the thing, though, because they were in the middle of this whole like movie making cycle, where the difference too is that Lucas actually basically sold it off kind of during a dormant period.
Right.
If Lucas had sold it off like right in the middle of making some of the movies, like say the prequel trilogy, I think it might have been a little bit more of a similar thing in a way because Lucas has still been doing it. It's like, it would have been because Lucas was actually not just handing off the company, but he was leaving the company at the same time. And I think that's where some of that comes in. And
the other difference is something that you pointed out a while ago. I don't know if it was on the show or just on our own conversation, but the difference is that Marvel has source material. Thing with Lucasfilm is the source material is George Lucas. So it's like when you take him out of the equation, now, you're subject to trying to create something without the creator.
Well, and here's the other thing that I find interesting, too, is the fact that one of the things that we speculate, this is long before Disney ever purchased them, too. This is like actually probably either in the middle or just after the prequels. And that is that, Lucas had this whole thing going, right? So, he's basically doing his thing. He has a plan. And then he decides to stop. And then there's a period of time. Mm-hmm. Okay, fine. Then he decides to sell it off. Now, between the time that he decides to say, I'm going to stop, time it sells it off, I remember you and I would talk about things like, man, what would it be like if somebody else could just take on the Star Wars, thing?
Franchise, yeah, basically.
And take on the franchise and then make movies on it. Mm-hmm. So I think this is probably around 2005 because it was after Revenge of the Sith came out. And he said, okay, there's not going to be any more Star Wars movies. And we're like, man, but there's so many other things you can do. Why don't you let somebody else come in and tell them?
Right.
Like you could still make all the money off.
Well, we were talking at that time about Timothy Zahn doing it.
Yeah.
Like writing, because we just take those books.
Or somebody else taking those books
and just doing them.
And doing them.
Right.
And of course, that's what everybody thought would happen once Disney bought them. Like, ooh, they're going to make the Zahn trilogy.
Right.
And it's one of those things that I think that it's sort of a mixed bag because, that happens and that's what everybody was saying. And then everybody is, waving the flag like, yay, other people get to make Star Wars films. And then it turns into, well, why don't they bring Lucas back to do it? First it's like Lucas is ruining our childhood. And then it's kind of like, well, let Lucas come back and do it.
But I've always said, like, it's cool for him to tell the story. It's just you don't want him directing it.
Right. You don't want him directing it. You don't want him. It's funny because a couple of my coworkers last week basically had a conversation. It was Friday and it was before we were leaving work, and they were talking about, what went wrong, and it's actually hilarious. I said, boy, if you guys were like on the podcast, it'd be kind of epic, it would be interesting. They had an interesting take on a lot of things.
Okay.
And it just showed me, though, just how this franchise hits different people. Mm-hmm. Like, for instance, one of my coworkers thought that Ewan McGregor made a terrible Obi-Wan.
Wow.
Yeah, and she's just going on about, like, just showing the stuff. Like, she loves him as an actor, but just thought he made a terrible Obi-Wan. Of course, it's the exact opposite. I thought he made an amazing Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
And it's... a lot of the fans did too, which is why they're making the Obi-Wan series with him. Mm-hmm. But it just shows you like how different people think when it comes to these things. And even though, we as fans try to even project like these kind of feelings even on the casual moviegoers or even casual, because she's actually a really big fan of Star Wars. Mm-hmm. I mean, because she was naming like characters and stuff like, oh, okay, she actually kind of knows what she's talking about. But it's just funny how it just shows you, like, even within the Star Wars fandom, how differently people view this and how challenging it is to make something that everybody's going to universally like.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to please everybody. I mean, everybody's going to have issues with something.
Oh, yeah.
Even as great as like the Joker was, people like, man, but I really wish I could sell like Batman. It like, it's like, it's not about that. It's just, everybody's going to want their service, included into their movies or whatnot. But I think that overall, yeah, everybody's going to have, and that's kind of what makes it great though. At the same time, it's like, you can have these spirited debates about why something should be in it, why versus why. And sometimes it does open people's eyes to like what's needed versus what you want, you know, and then there's, because you and I always, you know, sometimes like, well, yeah, Eric's right, but I still want it, but it's not needed. And it's like, but I still want it. So I mean, like, I get that. And then that's what makes it fun, though. You know, that's what makes the community fun. That's why we have podcasts. That's why we have all this stuff.
Right. It's like people, you know what? It's like we're all movie fans. Mm-hmm. You know, anybody watching this podcast is probably a Star Wars fan.
All right.
You know, so I mean, it just depends. You know, I think that people just have to chill out and let Star Wars be Star Wars.
Yeah, whatever it's going to be.
You know, whatever it's going to be. Not to actually be so regimented and rigid in the thinking of what you think that it should be.
Yeah, you have to allow for growth within itself, you know.
Yeah.
But there is the foundation that you want things to stay true to.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, as long as those things are kind of adhered to, then that's fine. And everything else is just building on top of you know, an existing, well, it's like an add-on to your house. You know, you're just adding on to what's already been there. So, all right.
All right. Well, so let us, I'm almost afraid to say it, but let us know what you think of all this. And, so is the Empire returning then?
I think
like after all that?
All that, I'm going to say that.
I mean, maybe we should at least end it with this, right?
Yeah, let's bring things full circle.
Yes, bring things full circle. From a certain point of view, is the Empire returning?
I think.
Like fully returning, the Empire.
I don't think the Empire is going to fully return. I think Palpatine is going to attempt to bring it back. I think this is his big push to try to make it happen, and it's going to fail.
Okay, so my take on it, I don't think it's the Empire. I think it's this new, like, crazy Sith army that he's creating that's using Imperial technology.
Okay.
This is my own theory. This has never been anywhere. I've never heard this from anything. You know, usually I end up being a conduit of every other fan theory that I read about either, or, you know, because I'm a big watcher of YouTube.
Right.
So I watch everybody's YouTube videos, you know, everything from Star Wars Explained to, you know, all the Collider stuff to John Campea to, you know, Mike Zero to all these guys that are out there, you know, basically making all these videos about Star Wars. And, you know, I basically process them and then formulate my own opinions based on stuff that I read. But this one's all mine, folks. You heard it here first. So after all that discussion, let's wipe it all away.
Like 3PO's
That's right.
memory bank.
It's time to clear your mind.
You know, we probably should take that from Yoda and just, you know, he did say it. Probably should put 3PO on the other side because his mind is always getting wiped.
Well, that'd be wipe your mind. That's if we don't want him to do that. We want him to clear it, not wipe it. You know, as much as we're reminding them to hit us up at Head to Head SW on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Right.
You know, we don't want to do that. So what's our first question? Who's it from? This is where you guys get to ask us questions, by the way.
All right. The first question has been submitted by Majir Rawl. And
good luck with that.
Yeah. Sorry, Majir, if I butchered it. I do apologize. Question is, what's with the dagger that Rey has in the trailer?
Ah, yes.
So this little doohickey right here?
Yes. Could be the Mortis dagger. And we actually talked about this a little bit on the show last week because obviously it came up, you know, as part of a trailer discussion. This tablecloth is driving me insane.
I know.
Just in case you see me tugging on it, you know.
He's OCD. Don't mind him.
It really is, but it's like it's kind of driving me nuts. But
he can clear his mind, but he can't.
I can clear it exactly. So the Mortis dagger. So I brought this up, you know, like last week or something, and it was basically another fan theory that, of course, I've seen on a lot of those shows that I watch. And I had forgotten about this. And, of course, we talked about it, I think, during the Mysteries of the Force podcast. I'm pretty sure that's when it was, where we talked about the idea, the whole that father and son, and daughter thing, and and of course that was the dagger that was able, that could actually kill them or whatever, and he stabbed himself with it, and that got rid of the. So the idea is that everybody thinks that this dagger is basically that dagger, that's an artifact, and then what's going to happen is that she's going to end up getting it, and then it's going to have some Sith writings and stuff like that, inscriptions on it, and then so 3PO is going to have to get reprogrammed, which means his memory is going to get wiped.
I think that's unfair. I mean, like, the guy is like fluent in 6 million forms of communication, and this is the one thing he can't read. I mean, it's just like, really?
Well, I know.
It's like, you would think that would be like probably one of the first entries in there.
Yes and no, because if you think about it, it's, first of all, you got to think about how many civilizations, both ancient and current, would have been in the world. Or universe, I should say. The Sith thing would be, it's kind of like almost some like little religious writing or something. Like, you wouldn't necessarily be, I mean, it would be so out there. Now, granted, I've often said, do they talking about the Sith race or the Sith
culture,
or religion or order, because I mean, if it's the culture, then, or the race, then 3PO should know, you would think. But if it's the order, then obviously only a handful of people would know. So he would have to be reprogrammed, hence the red eyes, to actually read this thing. Now, why he has to have his memory wiped in order to read it, I have no idea. Maybe that's just the effects of the programming. And that's why, of course, in the trailer, he said, I want to take a last look at my friends. That's the going theory right now.
So no one has a hard drive they can just store his stuff on it and just reprogram.
That's what I'm saying. Even right now, we could just do an external hard drive, put it down, it's like, look, our phones can do this.
But anyway, it's not my story.
Hey, man, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
I guess there were no hard drives.
So, I mean, that's what's up with the dagger. I mean, at least as far as the theory. We can
speculate, right?
It could just be a dagger. I mean, honestly, this thing could just be some weapon. I mean, I don't know. It does kind of look a little ceremonial in nature, I suppose, but...
I mean, I don't know what she would need a dagger for when she has a whole lightsaber, but,
Well, and that's the other thing, too. I mean, when you really actually stop and look at this still, it's kind of like, well, yeah, what's she using a dagger for?
Exactly. And the other thing is, man, you really don't realize how tall Kylo is compared to her. Jeez.
I know. It's also interesting that during this particular scene, he has his helmet on. We never really talked about this in the trailer breakdown or anything, but it's weird how a lot of times, he's doing that whole, he has it on, he has it off.
And might I add, this has no cracks in it.
Yeah, that's true.
Dun, dun, dun.
Well, then again, though, it depends on the... So I could have sworn that if you actually watch the full motion of the trailer, it does, but I don't know. Maybe not on this still.
Okay.
But could be the Mortis dagger. What do you guys think? Do you think that's what it is, or do you think it's just a dagger? Something that she just picked up, I don't know, from the kitchen or something. Let us know. All right, what do we got next? Who's next?
The next question comes from Liz Lowen. And she asks, do you really think 3PO will be destroyed by the end of Rise of Skywalker?
Good old C-3PO.
So we keep bringing him up.
Yeah, no, he's actually been the star of our podcast for the last couple of weeks. We talk about him a lot. This is like the most I think we've ever talked about him.
I know, right? But I think 3PO, I think he'll be destroyed from a certain point of view. I think it's
the 3PO
that we know it's going to be gone. And, he's just going to be... It's almost like he has Alzheimer's or something like that.
You know what it could be like? It could be like, from that other show, Data.
Oh.
Remember how at the end of, what was the last movie? It wasn't Insurrection. It was the one after it. Oh, man.
First Contact, Insurrection. Yeah.
Wow.
It's been that day.
Yeah, it's been that kind of day. So the last Next Generation film, basically when Data, had that like kid or something or whatever, he built that like B3 or something like that, and he basically transferred his mind or something to that, and he was like kind of a different. It was something like that. I don't know. It's obviously been a while since I've seen this movie, but it could be a similar thing to that. The 3PO is actually alive, but he's different because he's no longer the C-3PO that we know.
Right.
And that's entirely possible. I don't necessarily know if there's a scenario where 3PO is actually completely destroyed.
Yeah, I mean, like the actual body of 3PO.
It would be, I guess it could be somewhat fitting, though. I mean, Anthony Daniels is the only actor to have ever been in all the...
Right.
Because, everybody's like, well, what about Solo, a Star Wars story? But he was in that. He wasn't C-3PO, obviously, but he was in the movie. Mm-hmm. So, and he could still do that.
Yeah.
Obviously. In fact, I like the fact that he's been in every movie and in everything that's ever been Star Wars related. But I also don't like the fact that they have to shoehorn R2-D2 and C-3PO into every film either. I mean, most of the time it works, but there's been a couple of times where I'm like, okay, guys, I get it. You're trying to keep that record going.
Right.
But I mean, if he disappeared as another character, but he's still in the movies, that would be fine. And they could do that if they destroyed 3PO. But my personal opinion is I don't think that he's gonna be completely destroyed.
Yeah, I don't know. He might. I mean, like I said, it could be the finale of all finales, and sometimes, all things must come. Good things must come to an end at some point. So, depending on how this movie ends up, I mean, we don't know.
No, we don't know.
So it could be.
So it's driving us insane right now.
Yeah, especially like it's so close now because we're almost at November. So it's like after that, it would just literally be like. I can't even say a month. It would be like weeks away. So, but I think he might. I think he might. Bite the bullet. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people will. But I think it's all going to be for the glory of the galaxy. And I think
Yeah, well, we're in November. We're in November now. We're like basically like a week away from Mandalorian.
Yep.
So, I mean it's not going to be that long. We don't have that long to wait, everybody. We're really excited about it. All right, well, as usual, like we said, you guys are fully it's like I think my mind's been erased. You can write to us, at Head to Head SW on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and submit your questions, or you can submit your questions in the comments below this episode or any other episode. It would probably help if it were the current ones, but hey, we get notifications either way. So, if you guys have a question, just let us know and we'll feature it on the Clear Your Mind segment. So I think that's going to wrap up our show for this week.
Yes, sir.
We'll probably end up talking about The Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Within a couple of weeks anyway. Mm-hmm. Because I guess they're actually going to do 2 episodes.
Yeah.
First week, like the 12th and the 12th and 15th, then 22nd, and then 29th, and so on and so forth. Something like that. So, be sure to watch us. We'll probably do a full-blown Mandalorian review, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Without question. So that's going to wrap it up for this week. I'm Eric Vansel.
I'm Daryl Sanders.
May the Force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.